Hola a todos. Today I just want to share a few thoughts, a little bit of philosophy maybe, about what is work and what is leisure. Why I chose this topic is that, of course, with Todo Listo, I talk to people a lot about to-do lists. And what I often hear is, well, I don't want to write my leisure activities on a to-do list because then it feels like work. And I found that interesting because, well, first of all, what exactly is work and what is a leisure activity? And then, why is work such a negative thing? Is it always a bad thing to consider something as work? And another little phenomenon that I have observed in myself is that often my weekend is more stressful than my work week. So sometimes on Sunday evening, I'm like, oh, thank goodness the weekend is over and now I can go back to more relaxed work. Which is weird because, of course, we connect the weekend with leisure and that should be relaxing. But it isn't always. And the question is, why is that? So I just wanted to share a few thoughts on this. And I think there are two dimensions that go into both of those examples. And one is, well, what is work and what is leisure? How do we define the two? But the other is also which tasks do we schedule? What do we plan for? And which of them do we just do spontaneously? And I think that also makes a difference in whether we feel stressed or whether it feels like work in a way. And yeah, let's just discuss a bit, and maybe it helps you also a little bit to think differently about how you organize your life and how you invest your time. Because this kind of thinking just has changed a little bit of how I think about the relationship between work and, well, work at home and real leisure. Okay, let's start. Work and leisure. First thing that comes to mind is, of course, work is what I'm getting paid for. So my job is the work. And I think that is true, but I think it doesn't cover all the kind of work that we might be doing. When you think of housewives, of people working just at home in a household, they are actually doing work, obviously. So I hate this expression of working mom. I've never seen a mother that is not working because, hey, they're raising children. This is obviously work. It's hard work and it's important work. And they're also doing things in the household. They might be cooking. And all of these activities are things that other people do get paid. Just housewives don't. So you could basically pay a nanny. You could pay somebody to cook for you. You could pay somebody to clean your house. These are all things you can pay people for. It's just that you're personally not paid for them. But the work is kind of the same thing. So I think just saying, okay, things that I'm paid for is work and the rest is not, is a bit weird, because for me the differentiation should be more in what I'm doing and not so much in if somebody gives me money for it. Second thing that is often connected with work and leisure is the fun. So often it seems that we connect leisure with fun and work with not fun. But I think that is hopefully not true. So for me, the goal in life is to have a job that I enjoy and that at least sometimes can be fun. And at the same time, leisure activities don't always have to be fun. So if I'm going jogging and I maybe calculated the distance, then maybe it's not a lot of fun at the end because I'm completely exhausted. So fun I think it's a different dimension. Work can be fun and leisure does not necessarily have to be fun. I mean, most of the time it is because this is the thing that we really decide for ourselves. Let's hope. But I think it's a hard differentiation to say, hey, work is not fun. Work can be a lot of fun, and I think without work, life wouldn't be too much fun. I mean, just sitting around, just watching TV is probably not very fulfilling for most people. So what is the difference? So I give you my personal definition, and you can comment on whether you agree. I would say work is all or comprises all activities that are interchangeable with money. So that gets kind of in this idea of getting paid, but I would say it doesn't mean that I necessarily need to get paid, but it's something that I could potentially exchange for money. So that would be cleaning. Obviously, I can pay somebody to clean the house for me. I could pay a cook to cook for me. I could pay a gardener to do my gardening work. And even driving. I could pay a driver to get me to work or wherever I want to go. So these are all things that you could pay somebody and the result would be more or less the same. And that may sound a bit weird. I've never thought of driving as work, to be honest. But it kind of makes sense in this dimension to say, hey, I could have a driver and the result would be I would be at that other place where I wanted to get. So it's kind of the same thing. I would be more relaxed, but it's kind of the same result. So then when you look at this, like, ooh, almost everything is work. But what is not work then? Well, it's anything where you cannot really give somebody money for to do it for you. So something like any kind of sports activities, watching TV, reading. I could, of course, pay somebody to do these things for me, but the result would be different. So if I pay somebody to go jogging for me, that person would be trained, that person would build up muscle, but it wouldn't have a lot of effect on my body. So paying and the same result. So this is kind of the idea that you can really exchange those things. And of course, this doesn't probably cover everything. There are still probably things where you could say, oh, this could go into one category or the other. But I still found it interesting to think about work in this way. And when you decouple work from receiving money directly, it also gets interesting to see what are the results of your work. Because when you think about it, what's the goal in life when you think about it? For me, it's happiness in a very general way. And happiness for me means I live comfortably, I don't have to suffer cold, I have good food, all these, like comfy things around me. And this is what I think makes me happy. And let's have a look at how different work pieces, different types of work contribute to this happiness. So when I think about cooking, I get something yummy to eat, I'm well fed. So that has a very direct result on my happiness. When I think about gardening, hey, I have a nice garden where I like to sit in the summer and enjoy my free time. Cleaning, I have a clean house or apartment. I'm in a clean environment and that makes me feel better than living in the dirt. And when I compare those work things that I do not receive money for, compared to a job which first and foremost results in changing a number in my bank account, that is kind of weird. I mean, at least I have always been more focused on the job. So for me, paid work was always kind of the priority. Okay, that comes first and everything else has to arrange around that. And of course, having money is not a bad thing because I will need money to buy the ingredients for cooking. I will need money to buy my tools for gardening. So of course, money plays a role, but it's an indirect role. So when I get paid for a job, it's first of all just a number. While when I do some of those other things, it has a very direct impact of how I feel and how happy I am. And I've never thought about this like before, to really see that some kinds of work that I'm not really paid for, but that I think nowadays as work, have a very direct impact on my happiness. And why do I always put those last? Why is it always the number changing job is the first thing and the rest comes after it? Maybe we could arrange these things a little bit differently. And of course, your job doesn't necessarily only bring you money. Your job can bring you also some kind of feeling valued or getting something done and feeling proud. So, of course, a job is not just generating money, but in a way, we often think about it that way. And then we have the second dimension that I mentioned before, which is scheduled versus spontaneous things to do. And this is a bit more this like, what do I put on the to-do list? Because that's kind of the scheduled things. I don't have to write them down necessarily, but most of the time it makes sense so you don't forget. And these two things are a bit contradictory for me. So on the one hand, I like to write things down. Well, first of all, if I'm afraid I might forget them and they are important to me. Like fertilizing my roses. That has to be done at a certain time of the year, and if I forget, my rose won't be very happy about that. And I also like to write things down when I feel it gets too much. So I know there are a lot of things that I want to do, maybe at starting the weekend, and I know, whoa, there are thousands of things I want to get done on this weekend. So writing them down also helps me to, first of all, cancel some of them right away, because I see they won't fit into my weekend, but also to see whether I'm really planning my whole weekend through. So I sometimes even write down going for a walk if I think I want to do that, and I have so many other things that I'm afraid I might not fit it in. Then I write it down actually. But then what I do not do on my to-do list? Well, often things that I feel like, well, if I forget them, then I forget them. So things that are not so important, and when I feel, okay, it gets too much and I won't be able to really do it, then don't stress yourself out. So I just don't write it down. So if I still have time and if I still remember to do this thing, I can still do it. But I don't have it on the list, and it doesn't bind the time. It doesn't really allocate any time. And also, I don't write things down where I think I will perceive their necessity anyway. So the weeds in the garden, they won't go away. So I don't really have to write that down, because next time I'll be outside, I will see them, and then I can still pick them out. And so not writing things down can help to kind of free up a little bit of time. Because the thing is with scheduled things, as I said, it's good to have a structure. So it helps me to take the stress out of the situation. But on the other hand, when I feel that every minute of my day is already allocated, that also stresses me out. So I try to really consciously keep times open that are not filled with tasks. So for me, that's Sunday afternoon. Sunday afternoon is the time when I really do not want to put anything on a to-do list or say, okay, I have to do these things. It's really just doing whatever I think I want to do. And I might still do some work, something that I've characterized as work. I might do gardening. But it's not like previously determined. It's in the moment. I decide in the moment whether I want to do work in the garden or just sit in the garden and do nothing. And then that's up to me in that particular situation. And that is something that reduces stress for me when I know I don't have to keep to a certain schedule, to certain rules. I can just do the things as they come. And yeah, so this is my take on work versus leisure, and how I have recently actually started to think about them and to deal with them. So the one thing is really I've become much more conscious about where I want to invest my time, in what kind of work or leisure even. And I've really started to consciously define times where I can just bustle about and just, let my brain run idle without really having this exact plan or these expectations of what I want to get done. So maybe you can take some of those ideas with you, think about them, maybe turn it into something else. And then I hope to see you next time. Hasta luego.